What's going on, everyone? I'm Phantom, and this is another Predecessor guide. Today we're going to cover how to master Lieutenant Belica in the mid lane specifically. I am not covering support, as I am not a support main, but we're going to be covering the mid lane. In this guide, I will outline every ability, show you common combos, and explain Belica's playstyle. If you want to jump to any particular part of the video, check the description for timestamps. If you want to see more guides in the future, be sure to subscribe. Without further ado, I hope this helps. Lieutenant Belica, the Prosecutor, can be played as a mid laner or as a support, but again, I will only be covering her in the mid lane today. Much like her title suggests, Belica is great at shutting down any operations your opponents try to organize. She is a fantastic anti-mage and a strong pick into any team that relies on using their abilities as often as possible in teamfights. Despite her focus on utility, she can do incredible damage if you play her right. So, let's get into her abilities. Belica's passive is called Innovation. Anytime Belica maxes out the level of an ability, she gains 10% increased maximum mana, and the triggering ability is empowered in a unique way that differs for each ability, which we will cover later on. This passive makes it very important to try and max out abilities one by one instead of spreading out your level points between multiple abilities. With this in mind, start by unlocking all your abilities first, then choose one to focus on. Belica's basic attack is called Burst Fire. This is a ranged physical damage attack, but it won't be your primary source of damage. Lieutenant Belica's right mouse button is Void Bomb. Belica produces a bomb that detonates after a short delay and deals magical damage. This restores 10% of the ability's mana cost for each enemy target hit. At maximum rank, this ability is empowered by Belica's passive to increase Void Bomb's magical power scaling by 15%. This ability is especially great at wave clearing due to its mana regeneration from hitting multiple targets. At maximum rank, this is your highest damage, non-ultimate ability. It may take a little time to get used to its detonation time, but after a couple of games, you'll land almost every bomb. Belica's Q is Seismic Assault. This generates a shockwave in the target direction, dealing magical damage, knocking up and stunning all enemy targets within range. At maximum rank, this ability is empowered to increase the stun duration by 0.5 seconds. This ability is incredibly important for Lieutenant Belica because it's her only form of hard crowd control while simultaneously dealing significant damage. Avoid using this ability to clear minion waves, as it is much more important to have it off cooldown for stunning enemy heroes. Belica's E is Void Drone. Lieutenant Belica deploys a drone that drains a percentage of current mana from her enemies every second for 10 seconds. The drone will also attack enemy heroes within its range whenever they cast an ability, and this deals magical damage. At Void Drone's maximum rank, its attack will also drain 4% of the target's current mana. Use this ability to suppress enemies who rely on their own abilities and mana to make an impact in fights. During the laning phase, use this ability when you expect your enemy laner to go aggressive to either poke or hard clear your minions with abilities. This is especially useful against most mid laners, as well as certain off laners and junglers, such as Countess, Sevarog, and Crunch. Though Belica isn't a common one-trick, her drone makes her a near must-have against these ability-heavy team comps. The mana drain that this drone applies heavily complements her ultimate ability, as we will see in just a moment. Lieutenant Belica's ultimate ability is Neural Disruptor. Belica targets an enemy hero and fires her sidearm, dealing decent magical damage. The damage of this ultimate ability increases by a fraction per point of her target's missing mana. At maximum rank, the range on this ultimate ability increases by 300 units. This ultimate ability is a lock-on, so you won't have to worry about being accurate so long as you're within range to cast it. Also keep in mind that during the animation, Belica is standing still and very susceptible to enemy skill shots and CC. So watch out for important enemy cooldowns before pulling out this pistol. Neural Disruptor will absolutely shut down any enemy running low on mana, and this gives her so much anti-mage potential. I would suggest avoiding using this ability on ADCs, as their mana pool isn't typically very large, so the damage boost from low mana won't seem to have much effect. Belica only really has one notable combo, and that is the Seismic Assault Void Bomb combo, or the Q right mouse button combo. Seismic Assault will stun your opponent long enough for you to place your Void Bomb, dealing guaranteed damage to the stunned target. Guaranteed damage is tough to come by on such a skill shot heavy character, so you should almost always lead with Seismic Assault and then follow up with your Void Bomb. For your item build on Lieutenant Belica, I am going to recommend a handful of items here. First and foremost is going to be Azure Core. The additional mana and the magical power equal to 3% of your maximum mana is going to be really, really good. Based on your passive ability, you are going to be gaining a lot of mana every time you fully stack an ability. So I highly recommend Azure, that's fantastic. Combustion is really good, gives you a little bit of penetration, gives you high burst of damage, all that kind of things. Reduces the cooldown of Pyro when you damage enemy heroes, which you'll be doing often. Wraith Leggings, again, really good. Again, provides a bit of magical penetration, great against tanky people. Dealing additional magic damage against enemy heroes below 40% max health is going to be really helpful for finishing off enemies who you're hitting with your ultimate ability. Because a lot of the times you're going to be using that to try and finish someone off, and usually when you're doing that, they're going to be below 40% max health anyway. So this will just give you a 20% damage boost to that ultimate for you. Oblivion Crown is pretty much a go-to late game item for pretty much any mid laner. The magical power increased by 35% is absolutely insane. As you can see, if I sell this here, it brings my magical power down to 345. Buy it again, it's up to 628. That is insane. Definitely pick yourself up in Oblivion Crown. Lastly here, I have Prophecy. This one you can kind of go with pretty much any final item here. I really like Prophecy to gain that attack speed equal to 75% of ability haste and deal bonus magical damage on hit based on your magical power for your basic attacks. That's just going to help you deal a little bit of damage between your ability cooldowns, because as it is, your ability cooldowns can be kind of rough, especially mid to early game. So Prophecy is really good. Another option is Oathkeeper. After using an ability, your next basic attack within 6 seconds deals bonus magical damage based on your magical power. That can be pretty good as well. Otherwise, there's a lot of situational items. Tainted Scepter is really, really important if you're going against characters with a lot of lifesteal, which right now, with Countess being added to kind of the meta right now, Tainted Scepter is really good. I pick this up anytime I see Chimera and Countess on the same team. You're going to want to reduce that healing on those targets for 3 seconds anytime you deal magic damage. So that's really, really important. It's going to help you keep them from sustaining too much in fight. You're almost going to half their sustain. So that's actually really, really good. If your enemies are just really, really tanky, feel free to pick up a Caustica. That magical penetration and the additional magical penetration while above 50% max mana is really good. This is probably the other most recommended item build, just replacing Prophecy with Astral Catalyst. Astral Catalyst is good, though I don't find using your ultimate to be too great very often, so the cooldown reduction isn't the best. Usually you're just going to be using this at the end of a fight to finish people off. You're not really going to use it like you would a Gideon ultimate, where you're going to be killing multiple enemies with it at once. So realistically, not a huge deal, but the additional mana and the 3% increased magical power for 3 seconds is great upon using an ability, stacking up to 4 times. So, for example, anytime you use your combo, your Seismic Slam and your Void Bomb, you're going to get an additional 6% increased magical power for 3 seconds, which is pretty good. In the laning phase, you don't want to focus on poking your enemy laner, rather you should just focus on clearing the minion wave and last hitting whenever possible. Play it safe and wait for your opponent to come to you. Once they do, use your E to deter them from using all of their abilities, and if they're still aggressive, use your Q right mouse button combo to get damage on them and stun them long enough for you to get out of range. Your big advantage in lane is that you will burn through much less mana and thus last much longer than your opponent. This means that the only way your opponent can win the laning phase is if they poke and kill you before they run out of mana. Use this to your advantage and try to keep them in lane with minimal mana so you have all the control. Once you unlock your ultimate, you can hard commit at your first opportunity and abuse their missing mana to get massive damage on them with your ultimate. It is important to keep in mind during the laning phase that Belica is a mid to late game character. That is where she really thrives, and that's where you should start playing more aggressively. Early on, try to play more passive and just secure those river buffs. To keep your enemy from getting river buffs, hard shove the wave right before a buff spawn, and use your Void Drone to deter your enemy laner from using their abilities to clear the wave. This will buy you plenty of time to get river buff, as your laner will either waste time breaking the drone, waste time not using abilities on the wave, or sacrifice some of their health clearing the wave. Every one of these outcomes gives you a huge edge on getting river buffs, so be sure to time that drone well. This also means that you should make sure you have your drone on cooldown at least 10 seconds prior to river buff spawning, and I recommend placing it about 5 seconds in advance so you can get into position. Your only escape ability on Belica is Seismic Assault, so be very cautious of ganks and try to get your jungler to help and protect you while you get river buff at the 3-minute mark. Belica is very vulnerable to a well-organized team, so you need to keep your distance and pay very good attention to the map so you don't get suppressed. That's going to do it for today's guide. If you want to see more in the future, feel free to subscribe. And if you want to see any specific characters or other guides, feel free to leave them down in the comment section. I really hope all this helps, and I really appreciate all the support I've been getting lately. Managed to hit 100 subscribers, so thank you all so much for that. Without further ado, have a lovely rest of your day, evening, morning, afternoon, and night. Bye-bye!